Hey everyone, I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the editor-in-chief of Co. by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Welcome back to Co's Roadmap for Rebuilding, our series aimed at helping you recover and grow your business. Thank you so much for joining us today. So cyber attacks are increasing and businesses of all sizes are often targets, but small businesses can be especially vulnerable. This issue has even gotten the attention of the White House. In fact, just yesterday, the president gathered a group of business leaders to discuss the importance of cybersecurity. Today, we'll break down strategies for you to protect yourself and your team from this rising threat. Now, as we go along, you can answer our poll questions and ask the speakers questions of your own by entering them into the right-hand side of your screen. Before we get started, I want to thank our event sponsor, Iron Mountain, along with supporting sponsors, ADP, FedEx, MetLife, Square, and Staples Connect. We appreciate your partnership in this series. So we'll start today's discussion with a conversation on building your cyber defenses. I'm joined by Tara Holt, who is Senior Product Marketing Manager from Iron Mountain, and she's here to share her advice with us. And we have two small business owners here to share their perspectives. We have Saïd Eastman, who is CEO of JobsintheUS, and Renee VanHeel, the founder and president of Pay It Forward Processing. So thank you to all of you for being here today.
Thank you.
Tara, I'm going to start with you. So let's just first of all, tell us what Iron Mountain is, and then tell us about the biggest challenges that your small business clients face when they come to you, and what the kind of the first piece of advice you give to them when you first start interacting.
Sure. So thank you so much for having us today. I'm happy to be here with the team. So Iron Mountain, you've probably seen our trucks. We protect your information, whether it's physical or digital. We can help you protect it. We have data centers around the world, and whatever it is, we've handled it in the past and can help you grow in the future. So when you think about cyber resiliency, it especially for your business, it's thinking through like, what data do I have? What systems am I using? How would I want to protect them? And we recommend that, you think about cyber resiliency, how you would protect yourself against a hurricane or other disaster. You need a plan. How would I recover? What's the data that runs my business? What applications are out there that I'm using that if they go down, how do I get back up? If I am hit with a ransomware attack, one, am I going to pay the ransom, or am I prepared to be able to retrieve my data so I don't have to pay the ransom? Looking through that process, and then making sure you're putting safeguards in place. So if and when it does happen, and since there has been such a tremendous rise, you are prepared. And there are a lot of different things you can do to help yourself get prepared now, so you're ready in the future.
So let's talk about that. I wanted to ask you sort of about the kind of the top three potential threats, and assuming ransomware is one of them. Could you just first of all tell everyone what ransomware is and why small businesses are particular targets for that, and then we could talk about maybe some other kind of top threats.
Sure. So ransomware, it's really, it comes a lot in email. So it could be a suspicious email that comes through that has a link there, or they're saying, hey, you have to update your credit card information right away, or send us your passwords to keep, continuing to use this application. Reputable companies will not ask you to do that. So it usually comes in email. It can come through in other forms, but it's basically an infection that they're trying to break through your defenses, that if it gets installed on your applications or in or any of the devices that runs your business, it can really do some damage. So some of the things to think about is if you do have that attack, if some sort of attack happens, the big risk is that it can cause downtime, right? Some of the infections that right away, it takes your systems down and you're locked out. Some are, they're a little bit hidden. So maybe an employee clicks on an email, it goes through their device, they send that email to somebody else, it hits another application or device, and it can really, be in your system for several days before you notice it. And then once you do, you can have significant problems. And that's why we recommend that you back up critical data and systems so that you can recover if something happens. The other concerns are, downtime to your business, of course, like we said, but any if you can pay the ransom potentially if you do have a ransomware attack, but that doesn't mean the hacker's going to pay you, actually give you back your data. So you could still be out your data and then suffer financial losses. And then also, if you do have a breach or a data loss, you have to report that, and that could definitely impact you, your customers. It can cause financial loss, brand reputational damage. Some of our research shows that the average cost to pay a ransom can be around $170,000, but the actual price you could pay to remediate the situation, close any security gaps you have, and actually get back up and running, and then the loss of, the implications of the downtime, be well over $1 million per event. So,
yeah. That's scary. So if I own a small business, what are some of the key first steps I can take to protect my data and my bank accounts? And just can you walk us through what some of those basic things are?
Sure, absolutely. So we recommend strong passwords. Make sure you're protecting, think of it, think you lock your doors, lock up your computers, right, in your applications that you're using. So use strong passwords, make sure they're unique. Don't share them. Make sure all your employees have their own unique passwords. Enforce those password policies. Use encryption. Use a VPN, a secure connection. There's also what's called a zero trust network, which basically just makes sure you're authenticating who's getting in every time when they log in to make sure it's somebody who should have access. We also recommend what's called multi-factor authentication, which is just adding extra layers. So you might even see this now with your own personal bank account if you do online banking. You've logged in from your phone, but you've never used your phone before. It's like, wait a minute, is this really you? They ask you for, not only your login credentials, maybe they send you a text, you then have to enter in that code. So adding in as many different layers of security that you can really be that first step to protect you.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Renee in now. Renee, you run a credit card processing company. So obviously that's very important data to be protecting. So how are you making sure that your small business customers are up to date with their security in terms of processing transactions?
And Tara, so much of what you said, I just want to say ditto on that, because a lot of times businesses don't understand what they need to do because their mind is on building their business. So, and that's where, we come in when any type of credit card processing, be it e-commerce, be it a point of sale machine, a little hand swiper, you have to be PCI compliant, which basically means you have to have the highest form of security. There's a lot of times you need to upgrade your equipment. The equipment changes so fast because of all the crooks out there trying to get into your machine. So we tell clients now that it's kind of like a cell phone. You need to replace that and upgrade it every 2 to 3 years. But more so, you can run scans on your equipment to make sure that it has the highest security. A lot of times you can just, download a program and it will upgrade all the security. But you need to stay PCI compliant. There are other credit card companies out there that are saying you don't need to be PCI compliant. Well, if you get a breach and you are non-PCI compliant, it's a minimum of $80,000 that Visa and MasterCard will charge you, because they're going to have to resubmit or put out new cards for all those people that their cards may have been compromised. So it's really important to pay attention to your statements. You will see on a credit card statement if you're non-PCI, and you do get charged monthly, anywhere from $50. I've seen as high as $300 each month if you're non-PCI. So it's very clear on your statement.
Can you explain PCI compliance? Can you explain PCI compliance?
Yeah, it's payment card. It stands for Payment Card Industry, and it's the security on your machine. And e-commerce, if you're working e-commerce, sometimes you need to run a scan quarterly on your computer, on your website, on your shopping cart to make sure nothing's been compromised. So it is scans that you run on your equipment, and all the standards are put together. by basically a council that puts it together, and Visa, MasterCard have a lot to say on what it takes to stay compliant. So did that answer your question?
It did, yes, thank you. I wanted to make sure the audience knew. Saïd, your company is JobsintheUS, which is a localized job board. So totally different kind of business. So can you tell us about what kinds of data are you dealing with, and how do you prioritize protecting that?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for including me in this event, and also thank you to the sponsors. JobsintheUS operates a network of hyperlocal job sites around the country, 50 of them to be exact, 51 if you add Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. The business that we are in is two-sided. We have two types of data that we collect and track. One is employer data, which is our customers, small to medium businesses. The other is individuals, job seekers who submit their resumes to us. Nothing that we collect is personal identifying that other than what you can get on public. So, employment data is on other sites, addresses you can get off the internet, etc. But we still value the relationship we have with these individuals, so we do everything we can to make sure that, one, anybody who accesses resumes is vetted. So when all businesses that come to do business with us are vetted through our internal processes. And then as far as how we protect our employers' data, one, we have to be PCI compliant as well. We use third parties for all our credit card transactions. We have internal processes to ensure that we do not collect or retain any personal information for businesses, payment information that is, within our own systems. And on top of that, we also do multi-factor authentication for all of our employees. And also all access into our systems is through a VPN, whether it's a third-party VPN or internal VPN. And we do that because we believe that it's important for us to provide both a secure environment for our employees to get into do their job, and also a place for our customers. Lastly, I think what's really important for us is we're a US-based company, and most of our customers are all of our clients are US clients. So in that case, we limit to who can access both our sites and also do business with us. So in other words, international domains, international URLs are not permitted to access our website or submit information to our organization. So anything out Asia or otherwise.
That's interesting. Thank you. So Renee, I assume that during COVID, you've seen, we know there's been a huge rise in e-commerce. So have you seen an increase in the security threats as a result of this increase?
More so what I saw is the security was heightened. So because I can't tell you how many hundreds and thousands we got e-commerce set up within 48 hours, but it was nice to see that the standards of security were heightened. So we were not worried about it. But the thing is getting the business to know that it's important to be PCI. And that's what I hope, this will do for the businesses. What we're doing here today will encourage them to pay attention to it, because if you do have an attack, it can literally put you out of business overnight.
Who do they go to for help on becoming PCI compliant? Do they go to their credit card processor?
Well, that is the $10 million question. We actually put a whole department together of people that just assist all our clients to get PCI. They should go to their credit card company, but not all credit card companies have it set up where they feel they need to help them with it. And we're just a little bit different because we're so darn passionate about these small businesses being able to keep their money and not have to pay it out. But that is where they would start, is their credit card company, or their PCI compliancy company also may help them. So, and if anybody needs a direction, we're always here to help them go in the direction they need.
Great. Thank you so much.
I was going to add, if you do credit card transactions, it's extremely important that you reach out to your providers and ask the question of how do I become PCI compliant? They'll put you through a quick audit to make sure that you are following the right protocols.
Well, and Saïd, well, just a little follow-up to that. With doing this 22 years, that's a perfect case scenario. But I would bet 70% of them out there don't help. So that's actually a question when you're looking at different credit card companies. Ask them if they assist. Because Saïd, it's crucial, like you just said, that they assist you with that. It's very, very important because it can get very complicated.
Great. Thanks to both of you. Tara, before we go to the audience poll, just a question. Let's just say a business does discover that its data has been compromised. Like what are the first steps to take after that?
Well, so if you've prepared, and we do strongly recommend that you prepare, hopefully you've been backing up data, the critical data that runs your business. So then you have a restore point, a place that you can restore from. What we recommend is that you back up using the 3-2-1 method, which is basically 3 copies of data. 2 of those copies are on different types of media. That way you don't have a single point of failure. And 1 copy is actually offsite. So that is the recoverable copy, that's like offsite, offline. It's disconnected from a network, so it hasn't been hacked. So you can use that as your point. But that would be basically, if you realize you've had an attack, you're going to notice it within your systems. Then it's going to be a question of like, when did it start? How do we stop it from continuing to spread? Where do we have to recover from? Like, how do we continue doing business? So how do we make sure we can keep going? And then remediating, am I going to lose a week's worth of data, 2 weeks worth of data? That's why you want to make sure you're continuously backing up. And that way, so that it's backed up every night. And then you have more restore points that you can recover from. That's typically what we recommend.
And do you consider paper to be a legitimate form of backup data?
Yes. Yep. Paper, anything that, whether it's physical or digital, any file that is important to you, you should consider protecting it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We're going to do the audience poll now. So the question for the audience, you can vote now, is just what your company currently has, what kind of cybersecurity your company has in place currently. So you guys can go ahead and vote now. And good. I guess it makes sense that the majority would be in the building a plan phase, because this is exactly the target audience we're trying to reach today. So, but the no plan concerns me, and I totally get that. It's a little bit overwhelming. So I'm glad those people are here today too. Okay, so let's do some audience Q&A, and I will, let's see. I'm going to start with Saïd. And Saïd, I don't actually know how big your team is. So but this person says, for small businesses that don't have a large team, what are the quickest and most effective things they can do to build better storage and protection practices? So do you want to address that? How do you handle this with your team?
Sure. So my team is not that large. I mean, we have 10 people on our team. We have 1 IT person on our team. That person is responsible for the backups. They're responsible for ensuring that everybody in our organization is aware of the protocols on what happens if there is a problem where they click on the wrong information, ensuring everything is up and running accurately, such as VPN, etc. There are a few things that I always recommend that we do that we think others should do. One is ensure that you have some coverage for some protection coverage through your insurance company for cybersecurity. I think that's something that's important. The other is, I think it's really important that your team members are educated about cybersecurity, because I think a lot of times we're all click happy. An email comes in, we think we have to open it. Sometimes even your settings on your Outlook are a problem, because if you have things that open up immediately, that's a problem in itself. So we do an awful lot of education. You don't need a big team to do it. But the interesting part is there's a whole industry around cybersecurity, small consulting firms, big consulting firms. You just have to make sure that you do your homework as to who you select as a potential partner to help you. Or go to Iron Mountain.
Renee, this person, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, I think you totally nailed it. You got it. And the only other thing we would also recommend is if, tech refreshes and the different patches, your system says do a patch, make sure you keep your systems all up to date with those patches.
Thanks. Renee, this person asks, if you use an integrated payment processor such as QuickBooks Payments, do we rely on them to remain PCI compliant, or is it still the responsibility of the business owner?
First of all, I want to go back to Saïd's, what you were talking about. I really hope people pay attention. I am actually going to do a training now with our team because you brought up about 6 points that I had not thought of. So thank you for that. This is really, really very good information. It is the end processor that has to be PCI. It is not QuickBooks that will be the one to be PCI because the money just moves through QuickBooks. It is not the end user. So it has to be the beginning bank and the beginning of the process and the end of the process that has to be PCI. QuickBooks has nothing to do with being PCI compliant.
Okay. Tara, this person says, sometimes it's hard to get funding set aside for cybersecurity when a company hasn't yet experienced a breach. So the question they're asking is, how do you communicate to the people who would be in the position to do that, whether they're your company or they're your customers or vendors or partners, how important this topic is?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think we've seen in some of our research that cyber threats have increased over 600% in the last year and a half. And even if you have the best detection tools in place, hackers are getting much more sophisticated. So it really isn't just a question of if it could happen, it's when it can happen. And if you're not prepared, the downtime to your business, like Renee said, you could close up overnight if you have a critical event happen and you can't recover. Damage to your reputation, loss of customers, loss of data, loss of financials. It's pennies to the dollars to set up backup, to set up ways to fail over and recover, as compared to the damages to your business if you don't. So, I would think it's similar to, you have insurance for your business. It's another way that you are safeguarding your business to make sure it remains intact. It's part of business continuity.
Actually, Tara, I have someone asked a question about cyber insurance. So because we're going to be letting you go at the end of the segment, I'm going to ask you a second question, which is, the person's just asking, do you think businesses need to get cyber insurance?
It's definitely on the rise, and we have seen a lot of our customers ask us about it because they're being asked to get it, and they're saying they don't want to just have the piece of paper that they are, they have the insurance. They want the security in place, the backup, the failover, disaster recovery in place. So it's not enough just to get a piece of, we all have our different insurances. You also need to do the have the tools in place to manage an event. So it's both.
Okay. Great. Saïd, one for you. This person's talking, they're asking, what are just the best practices for backing up your data? Do you want to just talk a little bit about how you guys do that?
So we keep, because our business is 100% online. And if we lost information, whether it's for a day or for any longer than that, it would be a problem. We're constantly backing information to the point where if something goes down today, within minutes we can upload the backup of what we just did. So we're continuously backing up our data on a regular basis. We think that we don't store data so we don't have files that we store, records that we store elsewhere. So in other words, the 3-2-1 pack that was talked by Tara it's not for us. It's constant, and it's CRM data. It's it's invoicing and financial data. It's job seeker data. Everything has to be backed up, and it's continuous.
Great.
And I would just add to that, if you are using different providers for the applications that run your business, don't necessarily assume that they're backing up on your behalf. Definitely check that, and definitely make sure that you're backing up and that you have access to that backup data should you need it.
Thank you. One more from the Q&A for Renee, and this person is asking about having an online e-commerce store, and I guess their store is built on WordPress. So do you just have any recommendations for how to protect their customer information?
So again, it goes into the processor will get that information protected. And again, with your websites, when someone purchases something through WordPress, that information is not captured through WordPress. It is captured through the processor, through the gateway. So you want to make sure the gateway that you're using that connects to the processor, you want to make sure that they have the highest encryption.
Okay. How do you do that? I know I'm asking you very specific questions, but how do they do that?
No. Well, again, it should, it goes back to what Saïd said, your processor should be up on all of that. So, and if you call your processor and they don't know, find a new processor, because that is the responsibility that we have on our shoulders, is to make sure any product that we offer to our businesses has the highest security. And we work with them on a monthly basis to make sure they have the highest security. That is our job. So I believe it should be the job of the processor. Saïd?
I was going to just add that I think it's really important to reach out to your financial institution. Your bank will be able to give you some guidance. If you're a small business provider, and you don't have a big treasury department and all of that, you can reach out to your bank and ask about who they recommend for credit card processing, who they recommend for a gateway. And if you're going to do e-commerce, if you can do e-commerce business, at a minimum, start with your bank and let them educate you. There's an awful lot of information online, but you're hearing it from a professional financial institution, and they have a vested interest in your success, especially if you're their customer. So I always recommend that people start with business partners that they work with already about stuff such as which gateway to use. There's lots of them. Which processors to use. There's lots of them. Some are good, some are not. Some offer a lot of hand-holding, and some don't. So I think by starting with your bank, your financial institution, you'll at least have some sort of solid advice from somebody that might have done this before.
Great, thanks. We're going to wrap up this topic right there. So I'm going to say thank you, Tara. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Saïd and Renee are going to stay with us for the next part of our discussion. So we will now focus on how small businesses can ensure that their employees are involved in cybersecurity efforts, because we know that your employees can either be your best defense or your weakest link. So our next expert is Bahar Ferguson, who is the president of Wasatch IT. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Bahar works on setting realistic cybersecurity measures and protections with business owners every day, and she is here to share her advice with you. Hi, Bahar.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you so much. So let's start with you giving us an overview of what your company considers best practices for keeping your employees up on cybersecurity training.
Most definitely. So at Wasatch IT, we are the IT department for over 500 companies annually, handling their tech support, cybersecurity, compliance, etc. So we do this all the time. Some of the best practices are going to be things that you heard in the first panel, a lot of education. You need to continually educate your people. Have someone in your company or have your IT partner be focused on ensuring they're staying up to date with the latest trends, hacks, so that they can educate everyone else on your team. Having really good policies in place, everything from bring your own device to password policies is critical. And then making sure that your team knows what those are, that they're continually trained on them and they're reminded so that they're actually following what those policies are. And then, work every so often, throw in some nice little ethical hacking. You can work with your tech partner with that, send some tricks and see how well your team actually pays attention and follows those rules that you've set forward.
When you're hiring a new employee and you're bringing them into the company, what kinds of onboarding and just how to get them up to speed on the company's security requirements?
Definitely, that's a great question. What you want to do is have a very thorough, in-depth onboarding process that's documented, so it's making sure you're doing that consistently across all of your new hires, and making sure that you have your IT team looped in very early to make sure that those people are getting access to only the things that they should be accessing, making sure that those policies that I just mentioned are being shared with your new hires so that they understand what they can and cannot do. Making sure that they attend either a live or recorded recent cyber training so that they're not going to be the weakest link from the very get-go until your next cyber training. Making sure that no one, this was mentioned in the first session, you're not ever sharing passwords. That's critical, making sure people understand that, as well as making sure they know who to call if there's a problem. We have so many customers that call in every day just saying, this email looked a little sketchy. Is it real? Should I be concerned? And making sure they know who to call so that they don't just take the risk themselves, but they understand the resources available to them.
This brings up really the exact opposite question, which is what should you do when you have an employee leave the organization?
Another great question. What you want to do is that same thing. Have whoever's in charge of getting rid of their access looped in very early, whether it's someone in your company or it's your IT team. You need to make sure that you're shutting down that access. You need to make sure that you've been documenting what access these employees have been having through their employment with you so that you know all the things that you do need to cut off. And then making sure, if you've been doing good password work, you don't have shared accounts, it's going to be a lot easier, but that's not really true with everyone. A lot of people do use shared accounts. And if you're doing that, they're taking that password with them, they're taking that login with them, and you need to make sure that you're resetting all of those accounts when someone leaves.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about that. So a lot of small businesses are operating on a very thin margin and do not have a big budget for this. So if you're a small business with a very small cybersecurity budget, what are sort of your best advice on where you can start where it's not terribly expensive?
Another great question. I think a lot of people don't realize how many options are out there that are free. Education is free. Making sure that you're constantly training your team, that's free. Making sure that you're having people slow down and when we do cyber trainings, it actually scares people because they don't realize how many threats are out there. And after those trainings, generally people really slow down. They're not click happy, like was mentioned before, and that's critical. Multi-factor authentication, that's generally free with Adobe does it, your banks will do it. Anything that offers it, please sign up for that. Click yes. It's an extra step, but it's definitely worth it. Password managers, absolutely critical. A lot of them have free versions. Get it, start working on that. Don't use your passwords for multiple logins. Have really solid, unique ones there. And then policies and procedures. Make sure you get those going. It might take some time, but you can find really solid templates online. And then that's just training time inside your company, but it's not an ongoing subscription or anything that you have to deal with there. And then once you're willing to at least spend a little bit of money, it's definitely worth making sure you're backing it up. Some of that it's a little cost, 1,000% worth it. And then cyber insurance. We definitely recommend that for all of our customers. Just, it's not worth risking that pretty much inevitable hack that will happen one day and losing everything.
Right. Okay, great. So Renee, at your company, who is in charge of cybersecurity, and how do you have one person whose responsibility it is to make sure that everyone else is following the rules and staying up to date?
We do have one, and because we get people's personal information, so we change passwords on a monthly basis. We also have, it's triple triple level encrypted from what I understand. I am so not the person in charge. And to be honest with you, everything I'm hearing today, I don't want to be in charge of that. That to me is a lot of responsibility. So, but we have somebody very, very good that oversees it. And I know that he's on top of it because, like you said, there's a lot they can learn on their own and it's free. So they stay up to date on all of it. And, you know, our philosophy is if we don't keep ourselves safe, how can we teach our clients to keep them safe too?
Yeah. Saïd, same question for you. Who owns this at your company?
So interestingly enough, from a perspective of overall education and ensuring our systems are in place, it's our head of IT. But to be honest, because we have outward-facing emails that come through to our sales department, to our customer service department that are published, I would say that everyone in our organization has a keen eye around phishing expeditions by third parties into our system. So yes, the IT person has the primary responsibility, the head of IT, but at the same time, I think because the way we've educated everybody to look for these things, if a fraudulent or phishing email comes through, we have an internal process for communicating with everyone that, hey, by the way, there's a phishing email that came out through the sales organization, delete it. And so we try to make it so that it's everybody's responsibility to keep an eye out for things, but at the same time, we have one point person that's responsible, and I'm definitely not it.
Right. Okay. So, Renee, what are some of the requirements that you have for all of your employees? Like, what's the minimum basic things that all of your employees know they have to do in terms of just keeping your data secure?
Well, that's, like I say, changing passwords. We actually do background checks, extreme background checks on anybody that comes and works for us. And, you know, and I might not be the right person to ask because I just know the system was put in place 22 years ago and it just keeps getting updated all the time. So I don't know exactly what they do, but I know changing passwords, you guys, is crucial. And also, I agree with Saïd, do not open an email that looks suspicious. And they know if there's an email coming in from somebody you do not know, you do not open it. And you get it, you get it over to the IT people and they look at it right away. You just have to be so cautious, so cautious. Yeah. And, I know they hold meetings quarterly on new things to look for. If there is a scam going around, that is the first thing that is brought up on our weekly meetings also. So people just really need to be aware of what's going around.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So just awareness. Saïd, what do you guys do if you do have an employee that leaves? What does your IT team do to make sure that all of the data doesn't leave with them?
Yeah. So, I think as part of any onboarding process, you educate your team about what systems you have in place prior to them ever leaving. You say, look, this is what happens when you're using our systems. By the way, your email, your access to CRM, et cetera, is company property, and we will control what happens with that information. When somebody gives notice or when somebody departs abruptly, we immediately go into, if they give notice, depending on the situation, we'll monitor what we're doing, what happens within our CRM, because that's client data. We've had people in the past do things that we think are inappropriate, and we've caught them and we've said, look, let's remedy the situation immediately. So you definitely have to keep your IT department has to be involved in both your onboarding as well as part of your exit strategy. When somebody's leaving, your IT department should be there. It's not just HR, but HR plus IT are critical to that process. And then the other part is this is, people will do the strangest things when they're leaving for whatever reason, and you want to make sure that you are well aware that as much as you want to be good-hearted about about people and think the best of people, sometimes people that you think are great do a lot of harm on the way out. And it's sad, but that's really true.
Well, and a huge recommendation, there's no such thing as a 2-week notice anymore. You want to change those passwords immediately. And if you want, give them a 2-week severance, but be very, very careful, because in 2 weeks, they can do a lot of damage. So passwords are changed instantaneously for us if anybody leaves.
Renee, what kind of advice do you have for a business owner that's just starting to think about this now?
That was very good. So I'm going to be really, and this is going to sound corny, but this is where the chamber comes in. I am a huge proponent of networking with different chamber members. You can go in and find an IT person and say, what do I need to know? You do not have to be the expert at this. And a lot of times you don't have the brain power, again, because you're building your business, but surround yourself with people. Go find a good IT company. They are worth every penny. And if you even need to just hire them to get your program put together, it is money well spent, because you will pay for it in the long, at the back end if you don't do it. But there's so many good business people out there that you can find through the chamber.
Yeah, thank you. Bahar, same question for you. What's your best piece of advice for somebody who's just starting to think about cybersecurity, which we know are a lot of the group here today?
I think the most important thing is just to not feel completely overwhelmed to the point that you don't want to do anything. I feel like it's a lot like starting a new diet or a workout plan. If you think that you need to be at the end at the start, you're just going to get overwhelmed and not be able to do any of it. So just take those little steps, turn on multi-factor authentication, get a password manager, just start chipping away at what you need to do, and you'll actually succeed that way.
That's great advice. Let's go to the audience poll now. Audience, the question is, which cyber defense tactics does your company have in place? So let's see what people are doing right now to keep their data and bank accounts safe. So password management system is the #1, the multi-factor authentication, external cybersecurity service. That's still a big number, using an external service. I'm surprised at how big that number is, actually. So that's very interesting. So it's interesting to know who our audience is. I'm going to go to the Q&A now. I'll start with Saïd first. This person says, at what time in your business did you decide to put someone else in charge of cybersecurity? So Saïd, why don't you answer that first?
Perfect. So, to be honest, given the fact that I'm about 5% technical, which means I can almost break anything, it was from the very get-go of when we got our business started, and we realized we were starting to collect information from our clients as well as from our job seekers. We decided that we have to have an IT lead. Every startup usually, or every young company, should have somebody in charge of a technology piece if there's a technology component. I'm not saying if you have a business that doesn't involve a heavy-duty technology component, then there's no need for you to have point person. You might be able to do better with a company like Bahar's business. So, that's really from the very get-go, to be honest.
Okay. And Renee, same question for you. When did you sort of hand that off?
Well, I got fortunate. I married the person that oversees it. So it was immediate. It was definitely, and if he was not able to do it, it would have been immediate. So for these companies that don't have it, you really need to start picking away at it. You really, really do, because it is something that we don't, if you're not technical, like I am not, I don't like to think about it, but you need to have meetings to make sure that that stuff is covered.
Great. Thank you. Bahar, this person is asking about cyber insurance. So just how do you determine, what are some key things to look for in a good cyber insurance plan?
That's a great question. First thing you want to look for is making sure that the company that is servicing that account is actually, they've been around a while, they have a good experience in that space. There's a lot of really cheap options out there, which generally mean you're really not going to see much if anything does come up horrible on the other end. And as fun as it sounds, you actually have to read the policy. I've seen some policies that come through that are horrible, and it's pretty much a cyber policy unless anything cyber happens, and you can't do that. So you do have to read it, run it by your attorney, make sure that it fits. A cyber partner might be able to review that for you and let you know what is the best fit for your company and move forward from there.
Okay, great. Thank you. This person says there's a shortage of cybersecurity talent. Are you guys experiencing that?
So I'll take that question. So for giving them in the job space, there is a shortage in all sorts of industries right now. Cybersecurity is no different. IT is another. Healthcare is another. And so if you are looking for people, my recommendation to you is recruit consistently all year long to try to build the best possible pipeline of all sorts of candidates, and cybersecurity being one of them, or any other position that you might have. So so basically it's recruit and recruit often and build a great community for a potential prospect for your organization. If it's cybersecurity, great. If it's something else, do it that way. Same thing.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to answer that question?
I just want to add on top of that and treat them really, really, really well, because if you get somebody good, everybody tries to steal them away. So just treat them like they are king. Just don't let them get too cocky on you, because they will. But treat them well so you can keep them.
Bahar, have you seen a big increase or a change in the needs of your clients now that more employees are remote?
Yeah, at first it was a little bit crazy, trying to get everyone set up to be able to access things remote. It was really just get access. No one really cared how secure it was. As time went on, people started really worrying about the security. So that has definitely changed, making sure people have the ability to access everything that they need in a secure fashion, making sure that people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're getting paid for work is another really big one. And with the supply chain issues that we've seen, people are actually really thinking forward more, which has been fantastic, to realize if they need XYZ product to make them more secure or just be able to work in a more remote hybrid world, that they have to be really proactive about that.
Renee, this person says, how often do you reassess threats and protections and make sure you're still up to, the highest standard?
So if we're talking in regards to their credit card processing, if you are doing an e-commerce or any type of online processing, it should be done quarterly. If you have a point of sale machine, it's just annual, because the security is different already on the machines. So hopefully that answers the question they're asking.
Sure. Did you, Bahar, want to add to that in terms of just more generally, not just specific to credit card processing, but more generally, like how often do you think businesses should be just trying to stay on top of what the latest threats are?
Definitely. With our company, we're watching it all the time because we believe that our customers don't want to have to be focused on IT constantly. So that's our job. And we meet with our customers every 6 months at a minimum to make sure that we're pushing that cybersecurity training, that we're updating them on any of the latest trends. And then we're constantly monitoring everything to see any peaks and watch anything that we need to make sure that we meet with them sooner. So I would say look at it quarterly, at the worst semi-annually, and make sure that you're staying up to that. You'll be able to see trends with your employees. If they start doing stupid stuff, then you need it a little more often. And if they're going along okay, then every 6 months you might be able to be okay before you have to bring everyone together and remind them all again. But staying on top of it constantly, either yourself or through a partner, is critical.
Thanks. Saïd, we were talking the other day and you mentioned that job seekers are particularly vulnerable to scams because they're in some cases, they're vulnerable to maybe opportunities that are too good to be true or that kind of thing. But from a business who's hiring perspective, do you just have some thoughts about how businesses can go about conveying to potential employees that it's safe to share their information?
Sure.
And customers as well, for that matter.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, we do, because we operate a two-sided market and we work with employers. It is important for the employers to have confidence in us that the information that they provide us is secure and that doing business with us is a good thing. At the same time, when we work with job seekers, we tell them that we vet the employers that are on our site. So the jobs that are on our site and are accurately posted are vetted, and that means that the job seeker can apply with confidence to a position with a solid chance that they will hear from the employer that's looking to hire. And when we talk about vulnerability of job seekers, I think job seekers are vulnerable because they are in need of something. And so when you want a job, you have a tendency to think that if somebody's asking for information, you should give it to them because you want that chance for an interview, or you want that chance for a job. And a lot of times we advise all the times we advise our job seekers on our site, and we send out emails to them letting them know if anybody asks you for social security number as part of the recruiting process, you shouldn't send them your social security number because for various reasons, right? For security reasons, you shouldn't provide anything. You should go to, when somebody invites you for an interview and it's part of the apply process and you're in their office and they're asking you to complete an application, it's a different story. But submitting it online and submitting personal information online is a problem. Another one that's very common where we're trying to educate individuals that do business or that work on our site, job seekers, is they're applying for a job that they think will give them a lot more money than the position actually pays, and it turns out that it's a scam. And so we vet to make sure that the positions that are being posted online are the pay is commensurate with what the position is. For example, some positions that will pay $15 an hour or $20 an hour, if they're not being posted by somebody at $30 or $35 an hour, there's the likelihood that it's too good to be true. And a job seeker should be aware, and it's our responsibility as a job board to make sure that we're educating the job seekers in our community about that. It's really important. It's sad, but people take advantage of those in need sometimes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Renee, what part of your brand value, the value you bring to your customers, is that you're protecting their data and providing the security, and how do you communicate that to customers?
A big part of it is in the sense that I have seen businesses go under because they haven't been PCI compliant. So what we have done to help, we actually have, like I said before, a whole department that for free, we do not charge them to help, because there are companies out there that will help, but they charge $150 to $200 an hour. And we want them to be aware that it is important, because you'd be surprised how many businesses have no idea what PCI compliancy is. And so we educate them from the very beginning. We hold workshops on PCI. We will post a lot. Do you understand the importance of PCI? And we just have open dialogue, and we are very happy to explain it to people and walk them through it.
Yeah, great. Bahar, question about free cybersecurity tools and software. Do you feel like that is safe for people to use?
It depends on the specific one. I get this question a lot specifically to password managers. They're really concerned if they put all their passwords into one program, they're just opening the door to allow everyone really, really easy access. And to that, it's very true if you go through something really bad, and quite honestly, everything could potentially get hacked. But a lot of them, including Dashlane, if we're speaking about password managers specifically, they actually don't store your master password on their site or in their servers. It makes it very difficult to try and reset that password if at all possible. But the great thing about that is even if they were to get hacked and they had access to all of these logins, they wouldn't actually be able to log into your account without your password. So they do make that very, very difficult. And even if something horrible happened there, we always try and remind people that it's more likely that something horrible will happen if you use 3 passwords for 500 different logins, or you have them written on a sticky note on your desk, than it would be that they would be able to overcome that security and then somehow also know your master password, the only you should know, and be able to get your passwords that way.
Great. Well, that is where we are going to leave it today. So thank you, Bahar, Saïd, and Renee. Thanks to all 3 of you for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And thank you to our event partner, Iron Mountain, and our supporting sponsors, ADP, FedEx, MetLife, Square, and Staples Connect. Thanks to all of them for helping us bring you this program today. Please join us for our next event in this series on Wednesday, September 15th at 12 noon Eastern. That will be Co-Roadmap Building Tomorrow's Business Today, which will focus on ways business owners can stay ahead of evolving marketing trends and build a financial plan that will last. In the meantime, check out our website, for resources that are especially curated for you, which are located at the bottom of your screen and are coming to you in an email shortly. And please let us know how we did today by taking our audience survey on the right side of your screen. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's episode of Co-Roadmap for Rebuilding. Together, we will recover and rebuild. Thanks a lot. See everyone soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.